Hi. Can you believe it's already week 4? Because I can't. I don't know how it's been a month already, but I will say that I had a little resistance to this week. And also, this will be a shorter video. It wasn't as meaty of a week. I don't really know how else to say it. That sounds a little weird, but my partner Jules has the book with him right now, and I didn't realize until I started filming already. So I'm restarting now, and he was so kind to send me screenshots. So we'll be working off the iPad today. The first 2 pages of this chapter for recovering a sense of integrity just go back and reiterate the importance of the morning pages. The morning pages, by this point, you've been doing them every day, hopefully, 7 days a week for 4 weeks. So you're looking at a month, you're looking at 28 days. I already told you in previous videos that I've missed about 3 days over the course of the last month, but this week, I did not miss any days. I even tried to do my morning pages in some different formats. I tried doing like a voice recording while I was in the car one day because like we talked about last week, sometimes you have these moments where there's a lull and you shift gears. I also I also last week said left and right brain and got them all mixed up, but I think you got the gist of it regardless. The idea is the morning pages is going to shift you from the logical side to your creative side. And sometimes that happens kind of casually while you're in these lull moments, like driving your car, in the shower, going for a walk, whatever it may be. So I tried a day or two where I did a voice recording while I was in the car alone already. I'm usually thinking to myself during that time regardless. I also tried one day where I typed it on my phone, kind of as if I was texting a friend, but I will say that I do believe they are best done written. Research has shown that you are 42% more likely to remember something if you write it down rather than typing it, rather than reading it or speaking it. And so I do think that your morning pages, whether you do them in the morning or not, they are most definitely best done when handwritten. Even when I was younger, sometime in like grade school, I found out that to break a habit or to make a habit, things are best done 21 times. And also, things are best learned when you're writing them down. So I've always been a strong supporter of handwritten notes. I have felt the success of actually doing them that way. When I've been learning languages, I find that it's best to do them that way. The only one that's really not the case is with sign language, but then you have this cool thing called muscle memory. But these first few pages, kind of drilling in the importance of morning pages again, didn't hit home for me as much just because, as I've previously mentioned in other weeks, this wasn't a new concept for me. When I was also in grade school for first through third grade, my teacher at the time, Miss Gladowski, would have us do essentially morning pages. I just didn't know what they were at the time. Every morning, first thing when we got in, we all had a little composition book. I think we only had to write, like it was a time situation. It wasn't a matter of how many pages. And I also had a teacher a few years back while I was getting my undergrad named Casey Lees that would have us do the same thing for like 15 minutes, just free write, whatever it is, stream of conscious before we started the class so that you would just kind of loosen up, mixed reviews. But I really liked a teacher I had in high school, my freshman year, Miss Tammin, who taught AP Human Geography. And while it was technically like a social studies class, she still had us learn a lot of like basic psychology tricks because she was trying to instill techniques in us at the beginning of our high school career, as well as just like our educational career, the rest of our lives that would benefit us. And so Miss Tammin also really drilled in like handwritten notes are really crucial. I'm going to require them of you. I'm going to check in to make sure you're doing them. She also taught us about how, your brain is a sponge and it can only retain so much information. So come like 8 p.m. every evening, it stops absorbing. And then ideally, you're going to be getting enough sleep. I don't know anyone who is, but ideally you're going to go to bed and you're going to sleep at least 8 hours or more. And during that period, you'll hit REM sleep. Once you're in REM, all the things from the day that your brain doesn't think were crucial information, it's going to dump them. It's going to forget it. The one way to really ensure that things are being remembered, to make sure that you're prioritizing certain information, is to write it down physically, think of it 21 times, so on and so forth. I also spoke a little bit last week about how I was raised going to private religious schools. And so the very first thing every morning was theology class. And during my religion class, every morning, first thing for years was a memory verse. Some days it was a Bible verse, some days it was a hymn verse, you name it. Some were shorter, some were longer. I only lived about 10 minutes away from school, and I would not do that ahead of time. From the moment I got in the car, till about 15 to 20 minutes later when class actually started, I would just start repeating the verse to myself 21 times, and I almost always got 100% or an A plus. So these are habits that I already have, and I've already learned to incorporate them more regularly into my daily life. And I didn't find that so profound this week. I didn't find that I needed the reminder, but I can see why it would be important at this checkpoint for other folks. One of the other things about these first few pages is that maybe when you're doing them, you're noticing subconsciously or intentionally, you're kind of dropping Easter eggs for yourself. Some folks are going to be doing their pages and they're just writing, whatever stream of conscious. Some folks are using it and they're doing poetry. Some folks are doing their morning pages and maybe they're writing just like a fiction story. My partner likes to dissect films. I write my morning pages kind of just like I'm talking to myself, and I'm just like unweaving the web of just a knotted yarn ball and like jewelry necklaces that is the thoughts in my brain. But I'm not doing anything too crazy, and I don't personally feel that when I think back on them that there's any little treasures hidden in my morning pages. I will read this small excerpt from the first few pages that introduces another vocabulary word. And thanks to the morning pages, we learn what we want and ultimately becoming willing to make the changes needed to get it, but not without a tantrum and not without a kriya, a Sanskrit word meaning a spiritual emergency or a surrender. I always think of kriyas as spiritual seizures. Perhaps they should be spelled Kriyas because they are cries of the soul as it is wrung through changes. We all know what a kriya looks like. It's the bad case of the flu right after you've broken up with your lover. It's the rotten head cold and bronchial cough that announces you've abused your health to meet an unreachable work deadline. The asthma attack out of nowhere when you've done a round of caretaking for your alcoholic sibling, and that's a kriya too. Always significant, frequently psychosomatic. Kriyas are the final result our psyche adds to our injuries. In 12-step groups, kriyas are often called surrenders. People are told, just let go, and they would if they knew what they were holding on to. So ideally, maybe while you're going through your morning pages, you're releasing a lot of things that you've been holding in subconsciously. And these are your kriyas, and you're going to get things out and you're going to let them go then. Similar to concepts I kind of mentioned like 2 weeks ago is that, you have to work through it to get to the other side. You can't just dwell in it. I don't know. Maybe I am stunted. Maybe I've been doing morning pages in some shape or form for a while. Maybe I haven't been doing it long enough. This is a 12-week program, but I haven't hit like a revelation yet. I also noted this other section. If you look over the time that you've been doing your morning writing, you'll see that many changes have entered your life as a result of your willingness to clear room in it for your creator's actions. You will have noticed an increased and sometimes disconcerting sense of personal energy, some bursts of anger, some flashpoints of clarity. People and objects may have taken on a different meaning to you. There will be a sense of flow of life, that you are brought into new vistas as you surrender to moving with the flow of God. This is clear already. You may well be experiencing a sense of both bafflement and faith. You are no longer stuck, but you cannot tell where you are going. You may feel that this can keep up. You may long for the time when there was no sense of possibility, when you felt more victimized, because it's a comfort, when you didn't realize how many small things you could do to improve your own life. I definitely feel a sense of that, just like being confronted with getting out of your comfort zone. I was even resistant today to like actually sitting down and getting this video taken care of. I thought, I just didn't have that much to talk about this week. It wasn't that important, but I still needed to do it. And I just kind of dreaded it. And then I did my morning pages and just kind of pushed myself into it. But I feel that for myself, I've mostly established a standard that, I have a list of things to do and I have to do them, and I don't like procrastinating because the time that I spend procrastinating is really just time I spend sitting and dwelling and getting more anxious. And I think that that's more of why I sat down and finally did it. But who knows, I could be wrong. Okay, so here's the part of the week where we get into the rules of the road. And similar to last time, they've been renamed again. This time, it is the Buried Dreams exercises. As recovering creatives, we often have to excavate our own past for the shards of buried dreams and delights. Do a little digging, please. Be fast and frivolous. This is an exercise in spontaneity. So be sure to write your answers out quickly. Speed kills the censor. First one was list 5 hobbies that sound fun. I said skating, DJing, projection mapping, stained glass, and ceramics. All things I've been thinking a lot about that I want to try. Number 2, list 5 classes that sound fun. Again, you'll see some overlap. I said ceramics, music, ASL, Polish, and knot tying. Number 3, list 5 things you personally would never do that sound fun. I don't want to say never, but I did put skydiving, bungee jumping, which I'm more likely to do than skydiving, riding a motorcycle, gamble, and I put drugs, very vague. Because I can say I've done some, but I wouldn't do others. And motorcycle, I would ride, but I wouldn't buy one. Number 4, list 5 skills that would be fun to have. I put sewing, which I do already know a bit, but I would love to know more. Knotting, again, goes back to the knot tying. Baking, I know how to bake some, but I'd love to just be a better baker. I put flexibility, like stretching. I used to be very flexible. I'm not as much anymore. And every time I see a video of a gal who does yoga or like really sick Pilates and she's just in great physical condition, I think, oh my God, I want to be strong like her. And lastly, I put just another language. Number 5, list 5 things that you enjoy doing. For this, I included swimming, skating, volleyball, playing in the snow, and dolls. Because I talked about it last week, so it was on my mind. Number 6, list 5 silly things that you would like to try once. I do pretty firmly believe in I'll try anything once, and maybe just a second time to see it again. For number 6, I did put anything. Then we get to the part of this chapter that I had the most resistance to. This is why I did not like week 4, because I spent all of last week telling you how revitalized I felt and how rejuvenated, how good I felt, because I had really finally gotten into the swing of reading again. I've been working on it for like 2 years, and I feel like I finally found a rhythm, found stuff I was really loving to read. I was carving out time, and the time spent reading made me feel like I was resting, because I think it's really important as an artist to rest. Well, this week you're supposed to not read for 7 days. All 7 days, do not read. Obviously, easier said than done if you are in school, if you are in work. Julia Cameron even acknowledges this because she was teaching at the time. This is something she gave in as assignment to students many a time, and students would be like, hey, I have readings for class. How am I supposed to not do that? There's exceptions to this, right? She was like, no, there's no exceptions. I'm a writer myself. I'm a professor. Obviously, there's things I need to read in my day-to-day life, but I'm telling you, it's crucial. For 1 week, do not read. And why do you not read? Because for 1 week, you need to not consume other people's ideas and thoughts. You need to spend that time developing your own. You are probably putting them off, in some ways becoming a form of a shadow artist, by just consuming so much. Because yes, it's important to fill your well, to find resources that inspire you, but also don't let it distract you. Don't use it as an excuse. So here are the first 3 paragraphs in Julia's own words. If you feel stuck in your life or in your art, a few jump starts are more effective than a week of reading deprivation. No reading. That's right, no reading. For most artists, words are like tiny tranquilizers. We have a daily quota of media chat that we swallow up. Like greasy food, it clogs our system, and too much of it, we feel, yes, fried. It is a paradox that by emptying our lives of distractions, we are actually filling the well. Without distractions, we are once again thrust into the sensory world. With no newspaper to shield us, a train becomes a viewing gallery. With no novel to sink into and no television to numb us, an evening becomes a vast savanna in which furniture and other assumptions get rearranged. I get what she's saying. I certainly, many a time when I would ride the train or ride the bus in Chicago, would just sit and stare out the windows. It was one of the reasons I loved public transit and I loved commuting. Reading deprivation casts us into our inner silence, a space some of us begin to immediately fill with new words. Long, gossipy conversations, television binging, the radio is a constant chatty companion. We often cannot hear our own inner voice, the voice of our artist's inspiration, above the static. In practicing reading deprivation, we need to cast a watchful eye on these other pollutants. They poison the well. I also grew up not only around the city, but in a really loud home. And so I'm always used to having some sort of white noise. And I'm not talking white noise like ocean waves, the wind, some birds chirping. I'm talking like horns honking, people yelling. For me, I love to have background noise. I love to either have a show on that I can just kind of let go, a podcast or music constantly, and it doesn't distract me from doing something else. I can multitask. I find that honestly, when I'm in complete and utter silence, I'm just really disturbed. But I wanted to give this a chance. I did not want to come to you and be like, I just ignored it, because then who knows what the reaction would be. It's better that I had a bad reaction than I didn't even give it a chance at all. So I did not read. I did not read all week, and it was very, very hard because I just told you how into the Game of Thrones series I am right now. I had just checked out not 1, but 2 books from Libby, and one of them had a week till it expired. So it does ask at the end, did you cheat at all? Did you binge? Did you slip up? You could or couldn't count this, because do you consider listening to an audiobook reading? My book was going to expire, and I've waited for this book to be available for 2 years, so I wasn't going to let it go. So during my drives to and from work, I listened to an audiobook. That's it. That's all I did. That was the only cheating I did, if you want to call it cheating. And then as soon as the week was up, I read that other book. I read a 300-page book one day, killed it in a few hours, killed another I don't know why I'm using the word kill. Um Finished another audiobook, and then immediately started Clash of Kings, the next book in the series that I'm working on. Yeah, I don't feel that reading deprivation was for me. I think that maybe it's a little outdated or it's just not applicable to everyone because Julia Cameron started this workbook, these classes, these ideas a long time ago. Not so long ago, but my partner and I, Jules, talked about it when we first read the chapter. And I was like, I think that for me, it's mostly consuming social media, just endless scrolling. I don't do too much. I'm not innocent, but I don't do too much doom scrolling. But certainly I spend more time on my devices than I should, just like consuming other people's lives. I also find that I do that more often than not now because, the world is just imploding on itself and you want the distraction from the news. And at the same time, you want to stay informed. So you keep looking at what everyone's doing. For my partner, I was like, maybe you spend less time playing video games. I think it's important because it's an outlet that lets you release the same way reading does for me, but you're also not giving any time to being productive. To be quite frank, the time that I didn't spend reading, I did not spend being more creative necessarily. I didn't finish these paintings. I was letting them dry so I could sand them, and then I got new paint and we were having some repairs on this office, so I just wasn't in here all week. The time I didn't spend reading, I spent sleeping. And for my artist date this week, I'll just go ahead and get to that now. You were supposed to have a longer artist date. I spent my entire Saturday in bed. I slept. I was probably only awake for at most 6 hours on Saturday. I slept the entire day. And while you might not consider that an artist day, I wasn't like actively pursuing being creative. It's really important as an artist that you rest. For me, reading is kind of a way to rest. It's a way to not be thinking my own thoughts, but to still be engaging with something. I also clearly didn't realize how tired I was, like how badly I needed to rest because I slept in until like 11, got up 8, did a few things, and then crawled back into bed for a second, thought I was going to take a slight nap, woke up, hey, it's 6 p.m. Slept without any effort. I was going to go do other things for the day. I figured if anything, I'll go do my artist day the next day. No, no, I was tired. Like that's what I needed. And it's really important to rest just as much as it is to go do other activities. And that's what filling my well and caring for my artist looked like this week. It was a lot of sleeping. Even though I did say in my pie chart on week 2 and 3 that I needed to sleep less. I was writing about it in my morning pages too last week that I just felt like I was going. I constantly was giving myself tasks, especially because I'm doing this workbook and I'm giving myself exercises. I've been doing this new job. We've been settling into our apartment and our new lives. The world hasn't stopped. And so I have just found more responsibilities and things to do. And I was like, I feel like it's going to catch up to me really soon. And I don't want to let it just make everything collapse around me because that's what I would do before. I would let everything build up until I just completely burnt out. So this week, resting was very important. On the topic of reading deprivation, Julia had this to say: when the rage has been vented, when all the assigned readings for college courses and jobs have been mentioned, I point out that I have had jobs and I have gone to college, and that in my experience, I had many times wriggled out of reading for a week due to procrastination. As blocked creatives, we can be very creative at wriggling out of things. I ask my class to turn their creativity to wriggling into not reading. But what will we do comes next. Here's a brief list of some things that people do when they're not reading. Listen to music. Duh, I do that all the time. Knit, cook, make curtains, wash the dog, fix the bike, sort closets, work out, meditate, have friends to dinner. I did do that one. Watercolor, get the stereo working, rewire the lamp, pay bills, write old friends, repot some plants, paint the bedroom, rearrange the kitchen, mend, sort bookshelves, a dangerous one because you're being tempted to read, and go dancing. In the time that I wasn't resting this week, I spent a lot of time nesting. Not to keep rhyming, but my goal this last week was really to invest. I was investing, resting, nesting in my home, in my safe space. I got my period this last week, and so I just needed to feel like a lot of things were accomplished before I was lazy. Also, part of why I slept all day Saturday, it just hit me like a semi. And then I also felt like, we've lived here almost 2 months now. I've been doing this for a month. There was a lot of things we hadn't finished yet, so we finished those. We got the curtains up in our office. I got the new dresser in my bedroom and the side tables. We built those, we reorganized them. We cleaned and put the rest of the kitchen together, unpacked the last 2 boxes. So I didn't only rest, but the rest of the stuff wasn't like creative and interesting. It was important though for me this week while not reading to just make sure I was settled into my space because my environment really influences how creative I feel like I can be. If my space is clustered, if it's messy, then I get claustrophobic and I don't feel that I can be creative. I feel completely stunted. And lastly, as I said, this video will be quite short, so we're already on to the tasks. First was environment. Describe your ideal environment, town, country, swank, cozy. Just one paragraph, one image, drawing, or clip that conveys this. What's your favorite season? Why? Go through some magazines and find an image of this or draw it. Place it near your work area. I am Pinterest #1 fan. I'm actually, since like 2021, I've been an official Pinterest creator. I've been to their headquarters in Chicago. I'd love to work with them. And everything I can possibly do is in my Pinterest boards. I've got sub boards, I've got collages, you name it. I'm constantly sending my friends direct messages on Pinterest with things that I think they would like. So here is a little example of my dream space, as the board is called. I'll link my Pinterest down below today if you're interested at all. But I do think that a lot of #1 today, the environment this week, was for me to focus on building my environment out more. #2 is time travel. Describe yourself at 80 and what did you do after 50 that you enjoyed. Be very specific and then write a letter to yourself. I did these exercises again halfway through the week rather than at the end. I need to get better at doing them, kind of like one a day at a time. But regardless, when I wrote this one out the first time, my answer has not changed. I don't think of living to 80. I take everything about 5 to 10 years at a time. I kind of see like the horizon of 10 years out there, but I'm really just doing a 5-year plan at a time. God knows what the world will be like with the way things are going right now, the environment, politics, you name it. So maybe it's best to manifest, and dream big and think far out into the future. But for me, I don't do that. What I do is try to do as much as I can so that I have so little to regret later. When I went on my like exchange travel year in high school, my biggest thing was to remember that the things I will likely regret the most are the things that I will have not done. So I tried anything once, maybe twice, and that is just the best motto that I can live by for now. #3 is also another time travel. Remember yourself at 8. What did you like to do? What were your favorite things? And then write a letter to yourself at 8 from your current self. What would you tell yourself? For me, 8 was a big one. 2008 was the big recession. My parents lost their jobs. I remember one of my dogs passed that year. My grandma got really sick. Then the next year, my grandpa passed. For me, 8 was kind of like the moment I became very cognizant. I matured very quickly at 8. And I don't know if I even know the right things to say to myself at 8. I just wish that I could have been a child a little longer because I became so self-aware of how I looked, about money, about so many things, and I should have had more time. I feel like ideally that I would have been a kid longer till like 12. I also transferred schools at 8, and that was huge. #4 is another environment. Look at your house. Is there any room that you could make into a secret private space for yourself? Convert the TV room, buy a screen, hang a sheet, cordon off a section of another room, and this will be your dream area. You're looking at it. This little desk space that I have that I've chosen to film these weekly recaps in is my desk space in our office, and it's actually underneath a loft because this room is going to operate as like our office studio / guest room. I have another desk outside of this like little cave of mine, but the desk that's out there is like a big folding table for like really big projects. And in here is kind of just my little nook to crawl into. 5 is to review your life pie. Has that nasty tarantula changed shape yet? Haven't you been more active, less rigid, and more expressive? Be careful not to expect too much. I think everything in my pie has improved slightly, maybe even religion a little bit. Like I said last week again, I was watching a lot of Alyssa Grenville videos. Then the new season of Mormon Wives came out, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And well, I'm not necessarily figuring out what resonates with me. I'm figuring out a lot of what doesn't resonate with me. And so at least I'm exploring that. I haven't necessarily been exercising more, but around the rest of the topics, I'd say that I've increased them. Number 6 is write your own artist prayer, and then you can reference an example of a couple pages down. I did not write an artist prayer because for the last year I've actually been using a prayer already. Modified, of course. So I've done like an adapted version of the Serenity Prayer for myself, essentially. And the Serenity Prayer goes like this, although there's a few versions, so I'll go ahead and I'll just read them all. God, give me the grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish one from the other. There's also another version that is living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as he did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever in the next. I would obviously remove the religious references, the deity, but I do think just in a general, like the world will continue with or without me. And so I can either contribute and go with the flow, or so be it, because resisting is not going to do me any good. I haven't looked at some of these other ones. For every ailment under the sun, there is a remedy or there is none. If there be one, try to find it. If there be none, never mind it. I like that one. Oh, it's a Mother Goose rhyme. German philosopher Friedrich Schiller. Why would I say his name like that? German philosopher Friedrich Schiller wrote, "Blessed is he who has learned to bear what he cannot change and to give up with dignity what he cannot save." I feel like you get the point, but those are really my artist takes at the moment. That is my artist prayer. Accept what I cannot, change what I can. I already talked about number 7, which was my extended artist date. Rather than just an hour or two, you're supposed to give several hours, a majority of your day to it. I just slept. Number 8 is to open up your closet and throw out or hand on or donate one low self-worth outfit. You know the outfit, make space for the new. I got rid of so many things before this move, and then even after we were like unpacking, I still got rid of more things. But because we got this new dresser, we have a little less space, and luckily that just timed up with this exercise. So I tried to be really, really honest with myself. While there's some things I didn't want to part with, I felt that I really loved them. I was like, if I have not worn this in the last year or two, I clearly don't love it enough. So I purged a few more items from my closet, and I will be going to Buffalo soon because I'm planning on my artist date this next week being a big thrifting day. Number 9, look at one situation in your life that you feel you should change but have not yet. And what is the payoff for you staying stuck? That one, as soon as my partner Jules read it, I keep putting off buying this new dresser for us. It's doing no good. I can only be so picky. And there's only so many options. So I went ahead and I just pulled the trigger. We sat down for like 2 hours and we finally picked a dresser. We ordered it, we built it, we put it together, and I'm so happy. Is it like absolutely flawless? Maybe not. I might find other dressers I like better, but I'm very glad that it is done. Number 10 is the reference to breaking your reading deprivation I mentioned. So if you did, write about it. Was there a tantrum, a slip up, a binge, and how do you feel about it and why? Maybe I cheated by doing an audiobook, but I don't regret it. I don't think that reading is my main distraction. I think that social media is. As for the last part of this week's check-in, how many days this week did you do your morning pages? Did them every. Tantrums often show up by skipping your morning pages. How was this experience for you? I think that doing my morning pages every single day has been beneficial. I am trying to stick to it as best as I can. Did you do your artist date this week? Yes. Does your artist get to do more than just rent a movie? What did you do and how did it feel? It felt rejuvenating. It felt great to just sleep all day. Third, did you experience any synchronicity this week? What was it? Off the top of my dome, I can't think of anything. I'm sure there was plenty. I'm noticing it in little bits more often here and there, but there's nothing worthy of note. Fourth and last, were there any issues this week that you could consider significant for your recovery? Describe them. I just really did not like having to wait a whole week to read. That felt significant to my recovery. I suppose I also didn't work on my paintings, but I do intend on doing that. So I can't think of any big setbacks this last week other than the reading deprivation. But I'm really optimistic and hopeful that week 5 will feel like something much better for me. I'm nervous because week 5 comes right before week 6, and it's supposed to be getting really hard now that we hit that middle mark. But if you've been following along with this at all, if you're currently doing these exercises, if you've done the workbook, I'd appreciate feedback right now, because I think that any assistance, any overall cooperation would be very beneficial to my experience. I look forward to checking in with you next week, and I very much appreciate if you happen to have watched any of the previous videos, but thanks for watching this one.